Okay, so just in regards to the project, I was saying that so when you're doing a mobile first approach, you first start building your page like this with these sort of screen dimensions. And then once you got the design, everything 100%, then you make it bigger and you use media queries to adjust things to make them bigger. So I was just asking, what did any of you sort of any sort of thoughts you want to share regarding that kind of challenge of mobile first?
I think it's definitely the way to go. I think it's much easier to start with mobile and then add on rather than starting with
Sorry, Matthew, you're coming a bit soft.
Is that any better? I know there's a bit of feedback.
It's still a bit soft.
Alright, that's about as loud as I'm
Okay, yeah, carry on. What were you saying, Matthew?
No, I was just saying it's much easier to start with a simple design and add on to it as the screen gets larger than to do a full-blown design and start taking away from it to try and get it to fit a mobile display.
Yeah. So, like, I personally find that it seems to be a bit harder to start working off with mobile first. It usually seems like there's quite a sort of like a front-loaded effort that has to go into it. But then you basically, once you're actually done and you finally put the desktop size in, your page just looks great across every single sort of device that you can actually find. It just always looks great. Like all of the websites that I've done where we've done mobile first, they always just look amazing. And you could I can look back and immediately I could spot any site that I haven't done mobile first. Okay, well that's great. I'm glad that there sort of was a positive. People have been reacting positively to the project. Anybody else want to sort of just ask anything? And before we get started, we're going to be doing APIs and Postman today. Cool. Yeah, so no, like Jonathan, I think he's a back-end dev, so for him it was, a bit challenging to do front-end stuff. Like for back-end guys, like CSS is, you'll see the memes of Peter Griffin with the blinds and he's trying to open them. Like CSS is not very intuitive when you first start. Yeah. Okay, so today we're going to look at APIs. Just make sure that I am recording here. Yes. Okay, so we're not going to be diving like into sort of going into like the back end. Actually, we will be doing a little bit of looking at the back end, yeah. I'm not going to be teaching you guys to sort of like, okay, well, what am I trying to say? I'm trying to say that we're going to be doing some JavaScript, but it's not going to be too heavy. Just so that you can get a good grasp of APIs. Like I find that they don't teach you APIs like right at the beginning when you're doing web development, and it sort of becomes this sort of dark cloud that sits there, and you like, people say do an API call, and it's just scary and intimidating as this API call. But it doesn't have to be. It can be just actually something quite basic. So we're going to look at just sort of the basic stuff that gives you sort of that head start for programming apps. And even as a front-end developer, you're going to want to know sort of just how a bit of the backend works. And getting a Node.js server is actually, getting it up and running is actually super basic. Okay, right, so at the moment what you can see here, can you all see my code? Is it big enough or should I go bigger? Is that fine? Okay, I guess that's fine. Okay, so on the left here, what you've actually got, what was on the left there, is actually a Node.js server. That is literally all it takes to create a Node.js server. You don't even need this line here, so we can actually take that out. And basically, Express is a way for, it's sort of like a, scaffolding that goes onto Node.js that makes it just a lot easier to sort of set up your server. So here's basically all I need to do is just I get app and I just run my server, and then I just give it the port that it's running on. And now here's the stuff that we're actually interested in. So when it comes to API requests, there's a few. There's just sort of like a handful of requests. I'm actually going to pull them up here because I'm probably not going to get all of them. But the original one or the main one that you usually that you know about is sort of the GET request. So let me just get these all up here. So there's like often when you just get screenshots, there's just 4. I was hoping to look at more than these, but let's just look at these ones. So the first thing that I just showed you there is the GET request. So this is usually where you're just trying to get data. So you would usually, for example, in fetch, in the options there's a method, there's a way you can insert a method, and you usually either put get, put, delete, or post. Okay, so as you can see what they say here, so when you're doing a get request, you're just getting data from the database, or from the backend. When you're going to do a put request, then you're going to go and update something that's on their server. Then there's a delete. Then it's obviously just going to delete it. And post is when you're trying to create something new. So pretty much these are the only sort of requests that you will be sending from a front end to a back end. And that's usually something like this. It's just sort of like fetch, and then inside you do method, and I think you just write method, and then you just put get. Sorry, I can't remember if this is the right way. I use access a lot. So it's basically like this. You just put your method that would go inside there. The syntax might not be 100% correct. I haven't got the docs in front of me. And so now let's actually look at how that actually works when it comes to the actual backend. So I'm just covering this so that when we go to Postman, it's going to make a bit more sense. So let's now look at how you would do these requests. So in your front end, you'd send this get request. Let's actually do something cool while we're here. Maybe this will actually generate our code for us. Okay, so I've got Copilot, which is, like, I'm sure you guys have heard of, well, I'm sure you all have heard of of Copilot, which is the artificial intelligence. So I'm going to hope that it can actually do a fetch request here. Okay, so this is Copilot. This is hopefully going to just go and use AI to generate our code for us. So, no, unfortunately not. So it's actually just doing a GET request. I guess it's got clever and it knows that we're in a Node.js server and it's not trying to do a normal fetch. Okay, so let's just go at cover the basic sort of endpoints. Okay, so an endpoint is where usually you would go and try and connect with the server. So let's say there's a bunch of like you're doing a to-do list and there's a bunch of tasks. So your endpoint would be tasks. So you would actually go and send a request to that address. So something like, say, google.com/tasks. That would be your endpoint. Now, on our backend, we would go and specify the different endpoints that we want data to sort of hit. So we've got a GET request here. It would just make it that it goes just sort of to the URL. So that's the base URL that it gets sent to. Then I'm going to go and do a put request. So this would go and send back data. Then we would have a put request where that is to update the data. So update the data. And I apologize, I know like a lot of you are new to JavaScript, so this might be just a little bit intimidating, but hopefully with just the basic sort of syntax here, you can sort of understand what is going on. I will cover just the two parameters there in a moment. Okay, so then this will delete the data, and then lastly we would go and post the data, which is inserting something new. So you would often hear this as when you're building an app like this with these 4 nodes. This is called a CRUD, which is create, read, update, and destroy. So here you've got your create, which is the post, read is your get, update, which is your put, and then destroy, which is your delete. And that's sort of the basics of your backend app is the CRUD. Okay, so we've got, delete the data. Well, I've got 2 deletes there. Sorry, I was get, put, and then post. So create new data. Okay. So these endpoints we're actually going to be using in a moment. So create new data. So now this backend over here, this is actually running. I can actually go in my domain in my URL here, and I'm going to actually go and write. I actually can't run all of these. When I actually go and put this address in my browser, it's only going to run this GET request because the browser in a sort of default state is just going to try and do GET request to the server. It's not going to be sort of sending data and all that. So that's why you've got your GET request going here. So let's actually jump into Postman in a second after I've sorted these out. Anybody have any questions at this stage? I know this is sort of, we are jumping a bit far into JavaScript at the moment. Like I know Node, you know what the whole, we only just started JavaScript, haven't even started JavaScript. So does anybody have any questions regarding this at this stage?
Yeah, I have a question. So what you just typed in your JavaScript there is the endpoints that the browser can use to do any of those operations.
Correct. 100%.
correct? Okay. So it's like you've written your
Yeah, that's
API
it.
here.
Like I could actually
Okay.
give you this project. You could actually go and stick this on Heroku, which is like a hosting platform, and you could literally go to these URLs and you would actually get this data. Like it's actually that easy for you to start your own server with its own endpoints. But so exactly what you said there. So these are now endpoints that can actually be accessed by any client out there. Okay. So the one thing is that this is only on my local host. I'd actually have to go and host this on something like Heroku. You couldn't use GitHub Pages because this is an actual server that would need to run. So we won't go into that now, but you need something like Heroku to host it. But it literally is just this. This is all you need to do. Like you could actually go and have a data file that you import here and then have a randomizer, and then it just goes and sends back your data. So we could have something like send, and let's just say message, and then just go and there's a message like that. So now when I save it, oh sorry, it's that Copilot's trying to be. Sorry, I completely messed that up. So now you're actually getting this JavaScript object that's coming through. But it takes you like 5 to 10 minutes to actually get a Node.js app running. Okay, so I've created these endpoints now, which are all the CRUD endpoints that create, read, update, destroy, or delete. So let's now start looking at working with this endpoints. I'm just thinking of the best way for me to make this have real estate for all of you. Okay, so right, so this is Postman. This is, I think you have to sign up to get this, but this is what we spoke about last time, and I highly recommended you getting this. You should definitely have this. You don't have to pay for it. Eventually, if you do have too many like collections and sharing stuff, it does eventually want you to pay. But like I've been using the free version for over a year now, and it's I haven't had to pay a cent towards it. It basically does your API calls. There are more sort of features that it's got, but the reason why I believe it started was for the API calls. Because generally you'd have to go and fire up your own little sort of app to just go and do a basic JavaScript call. So I'll tell you where this becomes really useful, and I know at least one of you, I've warned you about this, and then it didn't happen, or you didn't listen, and then it actually came to bite you. So when it comes to you building your front end app and you need to hit endpoints, what can often happen is you start writing your code and you're still learning JavaScript, and you end up making a mistake in your fetch. And then the API doesn't work. And then you're like, oh my gosh, I'm so buggered now. I don't know what to do. API doesn't work. And you go down this long sort of path trying to Google different errors and all of that. And all you find is that your actual fetch was done incorrectly. So to avoid doing that, what you should be doing is that if you're ever tasked with going and fetching something from an API, you need to go and do it through Postman first. That way you can ensure my call is working no matter what. It is working through Postman. Now I know that when I do my code, if I have something that's wrong there, it's not the API that's a problem. It's my code base that's wrong. So you've eliminated a million different sort of possibilities of what it could be, and then you know that it's just going to be in your code. Okay. So let's now actually start looking at. I guess let's build our own collection for this sort of, what we call it, our own little Node.js server here. Okay, so you've got it open here. You'll have to sign up first. And then once it's open, you can come and you can create a new collection. So I'm just going to call it FEDSA Mentoring Program. And actually, I'm going to call it Example App, because I've got a feeling we're going to be using this more than once. And so the cool thing about this is that when I've created these collections here, for example, here's like a trivia app. Okay, it's a bit too small. Okay, so here's a task manager app that I created from a course that I did. So these are all my API calls that I've actually gone and saved now. And there's a lot more to it as well that I'll get into in a moment. But so the reason why we're creating a collection like this is so that for that site, you can always then go and run these API calls. You've already got them all set up. You know, you might want to be passing information in. So for example, I think over here, I'm passing in data. See, I'm passing in data here to login. So you can save all these sort of API calls as like a preset. I've actually got folders within folders here, just so that things get so nicely organized. Such a great tool to have. So we've got our FEDSA collection here. So now we can start creating our different calls that we're going to have. So what I'm going to do is we want to first get our first endpoint here, which is just your basic get. So that's whenever you're just going to get data. You're not going to send anything there. You just want to fetch data. Okay, so we click plus, and so now we've got our new, this is sort of our new request. And in here, we would type in our endpoint. So it's going to be localhost, and my server, I can see here, is running on 3001. Okay, so let's take that out, and there we go. So I'm going to save this now by pushing Control S, and now it's going to ask me what my request name is. I don't know what the standard is for your request name. That's probably going to depend on your team. Like I tend to write like get, and then generally what I'm getting back like gets data. And then at the bottom, you're going to choose what collection this is going to be going into. So I'm going to choose that. Okay, so you can see it actually does already say get, but the reason why I add get is so that it sorts my gets because of gets, just the alphabetical preference there. Okay, so we've got a get request. So let's go and actually fire this and see if actually anything's going to happen. So I click send, and then immediately we can let's go through the information that we're actually getting on the screen here. So when we send a request, it's our computer, and it's going and sending a message to the server. Okay, so the message that we're sending it is this get request. So then it comes from Postman or your browser or whatever your client is, and it comes to the server over here, and then it sees what endpoint we're trying to hit. So we're trying to hit get, and we've got this root URL here. So immediately this catches it. You could actually have a catch all, so it could have been something like app get and a star, and this will actually catch everything. So let's just add this in here. It's gonna catch. This catch all is not going to get caught on this main URL, I don't believe, because we've already got the slash here. So we send it to here, and it's actually, we just got sort of our main hello that we've got here, but then we also got to catch all if we want. So let's just take that slash out. Actually, we can just put anything in here and send it, and so it fires our catch all. So I just had to mention that catch all that you can get there. Let's pop it in. Okay, so when you're going and you're sending this request, it sends a get request to the server, and then what the server does, depending on where it's getting caught, so for example, it got caught on this first slash here, we can then decide what do we want to do. And based on how we want to handle it, we can send back a status. Okay, so now there's a ton of different statuses, and they all fall into each of their own categories. So you've got, I think, 2 is generally your success codes. Okay, there we go. So one star or so like anything in 100s, in the 100s. So anything in the 100s are informative. I think that's what it is. Sorry, informational. I guess it's a then if you have a 200, anything in the 200s will be these success messages. So generally, like, let's say you try to just get a bunch of articles from a blog. Then if you just got all the articles, that'd be great. But then what if you sent a post request which creates a new file, and then it's done creating the file? Do you just not do anything, or do you go and send a message back to the client saying, okay, it's done? You can maybe stop showing the spinner and show maybe a success message. So after you've gone and you've created, like, for example, a record through this post. Sorry, I've got this in the wrong browser window. Let me move it down to this. So when you've sent a post and then you've done that whole sort of update the database, and it might even take like 2 seconds for this to all happen, then eventually you're done. Then you can send this 201 created back to your front end, which is busy showing a spinner. It's waiting for some kind of update, and then it can get that. It will receive. So for example, Postman sends the message, and then it sends the message back, and that's this 201 here. Which isn't what I should have been sending back here. So let's say it gets this 201. Then on my front end, I can say, okay, stop showing your spinner and show a modal with a message that says, we've created your record under the name of so-and-so using ID number so-and-so. Yeah, so there's a ton of these information messages, and you will be needing to use them both on the front end and back end at a later stage in your career. So let's just have a quick look at them. So 300s are when you're redirecting. You won't really use this unless you tend to use this often. Then 400s you're going to be seeing a lot of, and 500s you're going to be seeing a lot of. 400s are generally where you're hitting like an endpoint that doesn't exist, or the record of that person doesn't exist. And then server errors, which are 500, that's usually not going to have to be your problem as a front-end developer, is when something goes wrong in the back end, and they don't know what went wrong, then they will fire something like a 500. So let's just have a very quick look at what would actually be happening. So say we actually did a put request, right? Sorry, we're going to do a get request here. And for whatever reason, we can actually go and do... Oh, this AI is it's gonna irritate me. Sorry, let me just put that off. I find that this thing's actually been done more harm than good. Okay, so these two objects, I'm not supposed to be less than a node, but in request, which is this REQ here, is the status code. So I think it's is request. Oh, it's been a while. Sorry, can't remember which one it is. But basically, you would go. I've got my other one here. So I think it's just request.status. Sorry, everyone. I don't get to work with. Okay, there we go. So we can say if request status code is equal to. That's not even the right place. So I'm trying to think of what I'm trying to actually explain here. Okay, so this is actually the right way. Sorry about that. So let's just say there was actually something that actually happened in the background here and things broke. So what we would do is we wouldn't actually go and send this. We would actually maybe have like a try catch block here, and there'd be your error. And what you would end up showing over here, like I just wanted to show you what the 500 error means, is that over here you would then go and send like a status message like 500, and just say that unknown server error. So this is how these sort of messages come into play here. So then this one would actually be like a 200, things are good. Okay, so let's just say something actually went wrong here. Usually you would go and send your success message, but if there was an error, then you might send this. And even before this, you might actually want to go and send a status 400, depending on what the error is. And if there's nothing, then you finally land on this 500 as sort of like your fallback there. Okay, sort of any questions regarding that? No. Okay, so back to Postman. Okay, so let's go and change our messages that we're sending here, so we can just sort of fire all the different endpoints, and then we'll start looking at some of the features that Postman's got. Okay, so first one that we'll be doing after this is we're going to do the post. Okay, yeah, you can see sort of all the different statuses that you can actually go and send, but generally it's just get, post, put. Actually, there's also patch, which I think is update, and then delete. Okay, so let's have a look at the next one, which is the post. So we're just going to send it off. So you can see immediately that we're getting the create new data. So that's just now, when it's sending to the post, it's now getting caught by this endpoint. And then what you would do, you wouldn't just go and send a status. You would actually go and add new data in. You'd be able to do verification and sort of authentication as well, and ensure all of that is done correctly on the back end. But this isn't really meant to be covering sort of Node. Okay, so you got the same thing with patch. I think I've got patch there. No, we don't have patch, so I think it's put. Then we can see our update, and then finally we've got our delete. Okay, so that's how you can basically go and have your different things. You can see that the colors at the top are changing. So let's just say I want to duplicate this and have a different sort of endpoint that gets saved here. So when I change it to post, you can see it actually becomes yellow at the top. And then I think it's Control E, also Control R, none of those. I just wanted to rename it. So, okay, over here we can rename it. I'm just going to put post creates new data. Okay, so eventually you can see your collection starting to grow. Right, so now let's start looking at some of the coolest stuff that we can actually do here. It allows you to have variables. So I need to sort of just talk about deployments and all of that before we carry on with variables. Usually when you're developing, you've got a development branch. Like in this last project, I tried to teach you to use your different branches. Now what you usually got is you've got your development branch, you've got a staging branch, and then you've got your production branch. And what the flow is usually is you develop everything in your development branch, and you go, and eventually once everything's good, you do pull request to staging. Now what staging is going to be is it's going to be like your production environment, which is like your stuff on the internet. It's going to be that replicated as like a private server. So it's the exact same thing as a live server with all of your stuff on it, except this is a private one for testing. So staging is like for you to go and stage all of your testing stuff to see if it's all running. Then once everything is actually working on there, you finally go to your master branch. So let's just go and just stick these shapes in here so that there's a mental image. So you've got your dev branch here. Sorry, let's just make it more visible. You've got your dev, then you've got staging, and then lastly you've got your production. Okay, so you would develop in develop, and then once everything's good, you go to staging, and so staging is to test that all of your stuff is working. You don't want to just go straight from development to production. You go to staging, and once all that's working, then you move your staging into production. That's going to prevent things from breaking because you would have caught all of these errors. Okay, so now the thing is that when you've actually got a development branch and staging branch and production branch, you also have different services that you use. So for example, Netlify, you would have, your website would have actually been, let's just say, what are we selling here? We're selling like just stuff for like puppies. So puppytoys.com. Okay, so that's going to be your main website here, puppytoys.com. But now, when you're developing, that's going to be on your local host. Like, you know, when we were actually doing our sort of pull request here, we're actually using localhost because when we're running our server, we're running our server on our local host. So now we've actually also got, where did you go? We've actually also got localhost here that is a server that we're running our stuff on. So immediately now we've got two problems, because if we are going to try to write our code and we're trying to do something that involves a URL, we'd have to like repeat our code 3 times and hard code this URL each time. So let's just go and just stick a staging here for the sake of completion. So we will actually call this something like, it'll be like puppytoys.netlify.app. So this is now our staging server where it's almost an exact replica of this production, but it's hidden away from the public, so no one else can see what we're busy doing with our code. Okay, so because we've got these 3 URLs, we need ways to deal with that. Now usually in your JavaScript code, what you would use is an environment file. So you would have something like .env, and then maybe let's just say like site URL, and then in here you can put, like, for example, my HTTP localhost. Then in your Netlify settings, which is where you host your website, you can change that URL to be that the URL you need to use there, and then another place. So what you've effectively done is you've turned this into a variable you can use throughout your code base. And that's great. You're going to see that in all kinds of approaches. Like this often happens that people have to switch out their URLs like that. So that's great and all. But now what do we do about Postman? You know, because now we've got this URL hard coded here. Now I can do this great. I can do an API request to my local server, but I can't do an API request to the staging server or the production server. So that's where now variables come in, or environment variables. So just like you've got environment variables here in your normal JavaScript code, there's going to be environment variables in your, I don't know what you call it, Postman configuration. Okay, so let's start looking at that. So the first thing I want to do here is, sorry, let me just, this interface is a bit, I think my interface is a bit older compared to the one that's on my laptop. Hey, Skull, how's it going?
All right, how's it going over there?
So sorry, I just got thrown off here. I was using my laptop, and I think there's an update to the UI, so I've just got caught out there, but this is the older one. So what we're going to do here is we're going to create an environment, and it's exactly the same thing as what we sort of got going over here. So we go up to the top right here. I think you might need to click the eye here or something of the sort with this. I know this one was, the older UI was a bit catchy. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to create an environment here. So I'll call it the FEDSA test1 develop, right? And then over here, I'm going to have a URL. And I want it to be, should we put HTTP in? Yes. So this is going to be localhost. And current file, I think it'd just be the same. Okay, so we've got that environment that we've created with that URL that's saved as that. Now what I could do is I can go and create another one, which is FEDSA. Can't remember what I called it. I'm just going to call it test. Staging. Okay, and then URL. And then over here, I'm just going to give a fake URL. It's actually going to fail though when we try this. But let's just go ahead with it. Staging and then netlify.app. Okay, great. And that's all we need now. So now, lastly, there's one more thing we need to do. So in those two environments, what we did is we created two variables. Let's just go back in there. I promise you, on the newer version of the app, it's far more intuitive than this. You'll see there's an environment tab and all of that. So if I go to this environment, and I think I look at the eyeball here, then I can go and look at the variable. So now that means that wherever we use this variable, it's going to substitute the value we've got here. And then if we just switch between our environments here, it's going to switch that variable out for us. So to do that, we're going to have to change it to include the port there. So all we do is we do two of the curly braces like that. And then inside, we can go and stick the variable in. So let's just go and, sorry, I just need to go and change this to include the port number. Otherwise, it's not going to work. It's 3001. Okay, so that doesn't work. It's because I've got all of this in there. Okay, so there we go. So now our variable is actually being used to get this address. I can't remember if you should do it like this, if you shouldn't have HTTP. I don't think you should. I think you should actually hard code HTTP into the actual request, into the variable, because your localhost is going to be using HTTP, whereas anything online is pretty much always going to be HTTPS. So you're not going to be able to, if you put it here, you're not going to be able to change it here. So I think what you're going to have to do, I mean, let me just see what I did in this one. I know with this one I was trying to follow best standards. Yeah, so you'll do your HTTP in the actual variable. So this is the great thing about it, is that now, so I could save this. So say we're testing our development branch. So if I'm sending this post request, this get request, let's just get this over here and make a slight adjustment to the code to just log that it is working. So we'll just go and console log. Sorry, it's the wrong one. It's a post request. Okay, so I'm going to save it. Now I'm going to send that post request. And if this endpoint gets hit, it's going to console log post received. So let's just go and fire that. Okay, so you can actually see a post received. Now I'm going to go and change my environment. Also, if you hover over it, it's actually showing what the initial and what the current is. Let me just quickly cover it. The initial and the current means what the initial value is going to be, but then you can also update values as you go along. For example, let's say there was a token from the authorization. Then you can actually add your token into another request afterwards, and I'll cover that in a moment. It might be a bit too high level, but it's fun. Okay, so let's go and change from our develop to our staging branch now. Okay, so now this is now, if I hover over it, I can see that it's actually going to this Netlify app. This is not going to work. It's going to fail because we don't have a server there. So it's just going to sit there. So it's not found. This is expected. But so now you can actually see that we're actually switching out our different environments. And then you can start. Okay, so that you can just got to sort of get creative with many different ways of how you can actually use variables to sort of change how you want your requests to go. Okay, and so I did say I was going to mention this earlier, but I completely forgot, is that when you're sending the request, you can see what the server is sending back. So let's just go back to the one that we were on. So I'm going to send it again, and then you can see here is what we're actually sending, 201 created. Because we're doing a post request, we're getting a 201 created back because we created an item. But if it was a get request would have just been 200 okay request. So anybody have any questions yet? All good. Okay. Right, so now the next one, I haven't got a ton of experience with this, but it was part of one of the courses, so I think I should mention it. And I'm just going to have to go by an example that we've got. I haven't got anything wired for it, but it is amazing. So, like I was saying, Postman can store data and add it into your environment variables. So I'll just have just a quick look at what we've got here, but I haven't redone this. I'm sorry if I don't explain it 100%. So this is one of the previous apps that I built, which is just like a task manager. So you can see there's actually a test, what do you call it, tab? There's a test tab here. And basically you can write a bit of JavaScript that goes inside it. Okay. Now, just got to have a look at exactly what's going before we look at this code. We've got an environment here. We've got these two environments here called Task Manager Dev and Task Manager Production. So we just go into it and just have a quick look there. And then you can see there's an auth token variable. Usually it's empty. You can see there's an initial value. There's nothing here. Okay. So usually it's actually empty. So what happens when you actually go and call this request? If it gets a 200, you've got a PM object basically available to you, which is, I think it's going to just be called for Postman. And you can then access that environment that we had there by going postman dot, and then you'll see it here, environment, and then we're setting that variable with the token that is actually part of the response that's coming in here. So what that allows you to do is to use this sort of the saved endpoint. We can use this to log in. I don't think it's going to work now. We can use it to log in, and then any other request that we do after that is going to call it as if we actually already logged in. Otherwise, what's going to happen is that you try to call it, and you try and do, for example, like update your user ID. It's not going to consider you logged in. So what this does is it will go and take that token and add this token to that environment variable that's being stored here, so that any subsequent requests are going to see you as a logged in user. Okay, so I think that's pretty much sort of the basics. Actually, it's a bit more than the basics, but that's what I'm going to cover in Postman. Unfortunately, this is not the updated one. The new one's also got, you can create mock servers. I usually just recommend just creating your own mock server just because it's fun to jump into Node. But you can actually create your own mock servers now, and there's another feature that they added. I can't remember off the top of my head. Okay, so we got 20 minutes left. I don't know if everyone wants to talk about the project, if you've got any questions that collectively troubled a whole bunch of you. Nope. I just want to just give a shout out to Matt. He actually managed to even complete the JavaScript sections over this weekend. Super impressive. Managed to get it all done. That's really great work. But don't be discouraged. I know Matt is a little bit further ahead than all of you. Okay, well we can just sit and just discuss anything. Any questions that you've got?
I had a couple of questions on just doing the project. I think my biggest question was around the use of Flex. So I used Flex on the kind of header container and put, when in mobile it was Flex direction was column, and then in desktop the Flex direction was row. But then within that I had my H1 for the logo, and then I had my nav for the links. And I didn't put display Flex on either of those. And it still worked for me, but I noticed on the video that you also put display Flex on those, and I didn't understand why that was necessary.
Okay, now just pop open this project and you can sort of show me which container you're talking about. Matt, this is your project. I hope you don't mind if I use it. I'm sure he's happy with it. So are you talking about this top section here?
Yes.
And you didn't want to use Flex on the menu links?
It's not that I didn't want to, it's that I just didn't. Yeah. But Yeah, but it worked. In fact, the only way for me to, so I actually use display inline for the links, but because that whole nav section was part of a parent header that had display flex, it did the right, like it did what
Okay.
it needed to do in terms of chilling on the right side.
Yeah, that's
Like,
great.
is that
You know,
fine?
there's more than one way to do it. There isn't always one particular answer to everything. The reason why there was Flex being used throughout the project was because we covered Flex content and was to sort of challenge all of you to see if you can think of the way that how designs can change through manipulating Flex. Yeah, yeah.
No, I used it. It's just that I didn't understand why in your example the children also had to be flex as well as
Yeah,
the
I
parent.
guess they didn't have to. Like the way that you achieved it is perfectly fine. It was just so that there was another place for people to go and switch the direction, just so that
Okay.
there was lots of
Okay.
reusing Flex
Oh,
throughout
yeah,
the
yeah.
project. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
That
So
makes
I might
sense.
not have done things the best way when it came to that. It was more just in line with the project.
I see. And then on the video, you mentioned putting a space div between the logo and the nav, but I don't think you ended up doing that. And my question is, when would we want to put like a third
I
div
think there
in
was
that?
I must have miscommunicated there because I was getting caught on that question. That's why I said I was going to do a video for you. You should never ever have a spacing div ever. You should only be using margin or padding to space your stuff. Sorry, like I don't know
Okay.
like how that came across. I'm just gonna have to watch the video again and see how that is. But you should never ever be using a div just for spacing. Only ever use margin or padding. And sort of the general rule is that
Okay.
usually if it's coming off the sides of your border, like the sides of your window or your document, then generally you would use margin, and padding is sort of for putting stuff like measuring items against each other. But that's just like an opinionated way of doing it. It's not the way that like 100% you must always do it. Just feel whatever feels right for you. You eventually find your footing of how to do it. Yes, Jonathan.
I was curious about something. I couldn't figure out how to potentially, with the middle store item with the flex reverse. I couldn't figure out how to do that without giving that product card its own class. And I think in the previous task it was kind of touted that it wouldn't be necessary to give it its own class.
So what you could have done for this one is that in your there's an outside container, right? Let's just go and inspect it. And what you've got is nth child selectors where you can actually use odd and even. I must be honest with you though, like I actually completely forgot that, I did say you shouldn't have to use another class. When I probably would have actually been fine with using another class at this point because like I actually slipped my mind that for this one it's reversed. But you didn't actually have to. And props for you that any of you that didn't. Over here you've got, I wonder if I should just go into the code and change it. Yeah, let me just rather go into the code. So you got an nth child, which should allow you to go and switch them, reverse them based on odd or even numbers. So let's just get to this. Okay, so we want product info.
So that's really cool because I figured I was missing something because what kept bothering me is it's fine if you use a class to do it when there's 3 items, but how are you going to, keep adding classes when you load more? So there should be something that like does it programmatically that decides that every, I guess, even element has got flex reverse imposed on it.
Matt, did you go and rotate them in the code, or did you go and use like an odd selector?
No, I used the CSS.
Oh, perfect, man! You did exactly that. Okay, props to him for getting that. So he's done exactly what I was talking about now. So what it lets you do is it lets you target odd or even elements inside a container. So let's just see if we can find that quickly. So I know this is probably going to be spoilers for all of you. It's probably going to be inside here. No. Try and find it in the code. Okay. So here we go. So what he's done is exactly that. He's gone and he's targeted that every even child must have a flex direction row reverse. And the other option here is you can change this to odd. You can also actually just give the actual number that you wanted to change. So the fourth child will then take place of this. But you can also add even or odd, which now Matt has used to great effect here to basically make it that his even numbers are switching or flex direction reverse. You got that? Cool.
Yeah, thanks.
And speaking of classes, Martin, when I was doing the header section, which is the only one I've done, with my styling, I was targeting like the elements, so like header A, and then entering my styling, or header UL, or header LI. But I noticed that you used classes, and I did everything without using any classes, and I'm wondering if it may be best practice to rather give these things a class and give them custom classes, or if I know that it's not being used anywhere else on the page, can I go ahead and just target that underlying element even without a class? How would you divide that up?
I think what you're asking there is that can you just go and sorry, Jonathan, I'll get you after this one, or is it pertaining to this question, Jonathan? Okay.
No, it's a separate question. Thanks.
So I think, Tamira, you saying that you would go and just target your elements like this, just straight up, no classes. Yeah.
That's what I did,
No.
but I don't know if that's better or worse.
That is basically worse in the sense that your code is, you're forcing styling onto code. So let's say that you did change list items, right? And these are list items in this unordered list. And the reason why we're doing that is for screen readers. You're going to find that like many companies, they're not going to know to use unordered lists and list items like this. This is going to be like a huge sort of skill up if you can actually think of lists like this. But sorry, it's just back to that. So if we were to go and hard code the styling for these list items, what if I wanted at the bottom here to have just a normal list? I would have to then go and reset all of the styling that you've applied over here and hopefully get all of it. And then when I didn't, I'm going to have to start throwing important tags in there to try and override it. And it just becomes super messy. So the way sorry, no, go ahead.
Yeah, I think the reason I felt comfortable doing it was because I had header first. So I had header space list item, and so that would leave it open for me to still style list items elsewhere on the page in their own way, because this would only apply to list items within the header.
I see what you're saying. Look, I think as long as it's in a class, it should be fine, but not in the pure header. So not in a pure header like this. And then you're targeting your list items inside that header. But if it was something like main header, then I think it'll be fine.
Okay.
Like the way that you want it to basically come down to is that you want things to be modular and reusable. And I think in your sense, the way that you're talking about it there, that it does actually become reusable. There's two different schools of thoughts. If Skulk was there, you'd probably be able to sort of correct me on all of this. But there's the way of, and we often got this at work, is where you do it individually. So each item is basically a class, or you start grouping them under, like, inside classes. So let's just say that you had this header here and there was list items. You would have your sort of like header main, and then so I'm doing it as like SCSS. I need to think of how you would do it. So you would do something like list item like that. So it's all contained within this header main, but that's great because now you've got things, they are like a reusable component, but at the same time, things are now sort of hard-coded into this. So your list item now is not a reusable list item. So there is disadvantages. There are two different ways. I'm going to speak to Skulk about that. He's going to be handling a couple of sessions for us in the near future, and maybe he can go into more detail. But there are two schools of thoughts, and I think the way you did do it there, as long as it's not header like that, it's fine. Because otherwise, if I use header elsewhere in the site, your styling is going to start overriding my stuff, or potentially. But if you create this as a class, then it's fine.
Okay.
Cool.
Okay, makes sense.
Jonathan?
This just opens up so many more questions. I wanted to. So you sorry, no, like the question I wanted to ask is like 3 or 4 questions down now. So, but the top of the list that I'm interested in, you made a comment where you said that the list items make a big difference in screen readers. Would you mind just elaborating on that? Because I've like, for as an example, on the accessibility and stuff that we have been talking about in the last while, like I've really been making an effort to use is it tags? On images, alt tags.
Yes, the alt tags. Okay, so accessibility, which is going to have to be its own session that we're going to have to cover, probably a 2-part session that I think Skulk is going to be running, just because he's just sort of he knows so much about it. Accessibility is a huge thing. I don't know if you follow at all, but overseas there's been lawsuits. I know the big one was a guy couldn't claim his prize from Burger King from the website or whatever, and he could actually he was able to win a lawsuit against them because that was the only way for him to claim it. And that's, in a way, you can consider that. Imagine having a competition and then you make it really hard for people to claim the prize. Imagine the world starts doing that. So accessibility is a really, really big thing, and part of it is getting screen readers to understand what the website is saying. And just before I go on, accessibility, when I'm saying people that are maybe struggling to read, I don't mean people that are like completely blind. Like, there are people that are completely blind, but then there's also people that they might just have a temporary sort of ailment, and people that can't see just that great, or when you get old, your vision isn't that great. So don't think that it's just addressing blind people. It's people with any kind of percentage of sort of visual difficulties. So when it comes to the screen reader, if we just had divs here in a section, there's no way for that screen reader to know that it's actually going through a list of items like this. So imagine it was just a div. It's just going to come along and it's just going to have this div. It's going to have this div, this div, div. Whereas if you've actually got these items in an unordered list and as a list, now it can actually go and basically say, here is a list of items, go through the list of items. So it will say something like, I'm not too sure exactly what the actual screen reader will say, but it will be something like list item. And then they'll be able to go and see what it is. List item, list item. So they will know that these are all products as part of one list, that they can sort of go back and forth. Now, I don't think the internals inside you 100%. Like, I think with an H3 it's fine, and then just the P, I would say that that's possibly correct. But so the list items allows them to easily navigate through basically lists on a page. I mean, if you think about it, is this not a list at the end of the day, Like, imagine you're playing a game, and often these games have got like UI elements in different places. So at the top left, you've got like your health. Then your top right, you've got like a settings button, and at the bottom, you've got your action bars. Now, usually, if you're playing with like a controller, you can switch between the sections and then navigate in that section. So that's what you're trying to do here, is you're trying to create sections so that they can get navigated inside that section. Otherwise, this person just doesn't know where anything is. Like, it may as well be that this item here is just sort of randomly on this side of the screen, and then that other one is randomly on that side of the screen. This screen reader can't give like a hierarchy to where these things are.
Geez, that helps. Yeah, that's amazing. I'm taking that to the bank. It was a very useful lesson.
Usually you can have things going in an unordered list. Like, get used to, you have to make the little bullet point disappear, which is that's just like list style none. And then there's always that padding, because when you're writing stuff, like for example in a Word document, you write stuff in Word. Sorry, I've got to do that. Things are always going to be indented. Like, I often use Word because these things, the way that they work, they tend to borrow from things like word processors as well as art programs. Like CSS, you can definitely see it comes from art programs, And then you can see the way the text is laid out is also from your word processors. So you can see that there's always going to be this indentation when we're going and using bullet lists. It's just the way that we tend to write things. So when you are going and using a list item, it's always going to be pushing the content over. You need to remove that padding and then remove that bullet point. And then there you go. Now when the screen reader gets to this point, it can actually go through these as like separate items. And then the same, even with your menu links here, it can go and say to you, Ricker section, and then item, our story, item, our green initiative, our item, store locator, as opposed to just going and saying our story, our green initiative, store locator, your cart, your wish list, your orders. It's just a mess. You need to try and see how these things in your mind sort of become sort of like how you navigate it in your mind. And you can actually go and see your hierarchy, by the way. If you just go into your index file, and I bet you've gone right past it, is that here in the bottom left, if you click outline, it actually shows you the hierarchy of your page and how your things are sort of put together. It's not really going to solve anything for you now, but this is good to sort of go through. I'm hoping that in the future sessions with Skulk, we can actually download a screen reader and start going through this and give you that, because one of the goals for these mentoring sessions is to get you employable and getting the best career possible for you. And getting accessibility and getting informed in that is going to put you so far ahead of any of your peers. Yeah. Okay, so we've got 2 minutes left. Is anything else? Yeah, Jonathan.
Cool. I wanted just to ask you, on using classes versus using IDs versus using the element, is there, especially I think between, you had a good conversation with Tamira now on like element use and how that can have far-reaching consequences if you kind of use that as your default go-to. But when would you use an ID over a class or a class over an ID?
Never, ever. You only ever, okay, anybody else want to just chime in here? It's good to sort of try and, anyone have the answer to this?
As far as I know, IDs are reserved for functionality. So a button that needs to fire something, and then classes for any type
and then
of
the
style.
ID must be, is like the one thing, it must be.
Ooh,
So the IDs must be unique. So let's he's got that right. So yeah. Okay, so
right,
exactly
sure,
what
yeah.
he says. Classes are for styling. Okay, and the reason why it's called a class is because we've got like object-oriented programming with classes, right? So you would usually create like a banner, and then you should be able to reuse HTML that uses this banner as like reusable code, basically. So class is always styling, but now we've also got an ID, and it's another selector. So class is a type of selector, and ID is also a type of selector, or that you can use as a selector. ID though, you're only ever supposed to ever have one. You're not allowed to have more than one. So you can't have an ID root here and another ID root down here. Okay, you can't ever have that. And you should never be styling your IDs ever. Even if you've got like an ID, still put a class on, because that ID might change. Your ID is most likely going to probably be changing. So you don't tie any styling to your ID. So now why is there an ID? An ID is there so that you can select this item with JavaScript. That's basically what it comes down to. And that's why it has to be unique. If you have ID more products here, and then we were to go and put ID over here as well, it's only going to select this first one. And you're going to have, all hell is going to break loose now. If people aren't following this as a standard, because you're going to have this, and let's say this element gets pulled out now, then this code's now suddenly going to fire. So ID, you never style it. You only ever have one. And the reason why it's there is because so that we can use JavaScript to select it. So usually what we would do here in our JavaScript, so let's actually just add our script in here. The way that what you would do is, so say we wanted that more products, you would do something like const more products is equal to document get element by ID. Sorry, messing this up. Get element by ID, and then you can say more products. So now you've selected it by ID, and you can do stuff with it. So ID only ever once. It has to be unique. Cool. All right, Douglas.
Yeah, sorry, I had a question. Well, not quite related to this. Are we going to ever be tackling React
Oh
at a
yes, man.
later stage?
I'm itching for that. That is my thing. Like that's what I learn every single day is React. It's just that we're building up to it.
So this project is basically going to be CSS, HTML, and it'll be vanilla JavaScript.
Yeah,
Am I right in
this is not
saying
going to
that?
be a React project. React is going to be this project is finished. Oh, not finished. If you're still busy on it, then that's fine. But like the requirements aren't going to change. The next project or one of those after that will be a React project. We're just gonna have to see, like, whatever the interest is. If more people want to be using Vue, then we're probably gonna have to maybe have to look at all three of them. Who knows? But ideally, I would be teaching React because that's what I skill in is React.
Okay. And we don't tackle Node at all as such, or is it just going to be front end?
Not. We were actually speaking about that. We do think we are going to be covering backend as well, but it would probably only be at a much later stage because of the way that the path goes. That it's sort of HTML, then CSS, then JavaScript, then framework, and then ultimately backend. It's right at the back. Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Cool. Right.
Thank you.
I can take more questions. I'm not rushed for time, but I think some other people might want to leave and they just feel like it's rude if they bail. So if any of you need to go, there's no problem. I'm going to be taking more questions now. So if you do have questions, you want to hang around, you're more than welcome to. But for all of you that do need to go, like the time has ended, so you are welcome to jump off. And we will be seeing you next week. Okay, right. Jonathan, you had another question?
Yeah, geez, I'm really intrigued by that nth child CSS styling, and I just wanted to kind of just bounce like what I saw in the code, like off of what it actually does, because I think it actually solves one of the issues that I was laughing at myself at, is where you've got multiple list elements that you want styling applied to. So then I physically in the HTML had to apply that class to every single list item. And so does the nth child how does it work? It looks like you, if you like, let's say you've got a parent div and you've got child containers inside that div, and you apply nth child styling to the parent div, it automatically is applied to all the children. It looks like that's what's happening, but I wanted to just pick your brain on what's happening and how do you use it. I mean, we've now seen, how you can use it to style the odd nth child element differently, which is awesome. And I just would like to just pick your brain on how that actually works and
cool.
where to use it.
Right, so let's just say that over here we've got, these are all, you've got a container and these are all nodes in a container. So these are, like, you've got an unordered list and then these are list items, right? That's what an unordered list is. It's just a container for these list items. So now we can say to it, target just index 1, and it only targets index 1. So I think you are familiar with arrays, where arrays it's a list of items.
Yes.
So just imagine like you got like it's a list of items. So if we target 1, just like an index and array, then it just gets that first item in CSS. So what if we wanted though to target the last, target 7? So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, or target 5. It would target just this. But now we can start getting clever. We can say to target even. Now I think it starts at 1, right? I don't think it starts at 0. I think CSS starts at 1. So it'll be, even would be, so if this is 1, this is 2. So it targets, let's say we're doing even, right? So even, sorry about the handwriting. So it'll be, this is 1, 2, 3, 4, etc. So it would target 2, 4, 6, and then anything else that was even. So that by doing that, and then if you say flex direction, reverse column or reverse row, these ones would then be impacted, but not the ones that aren't colored in. And then odd would be the opposite approach of this, where so if we had odd, it would be 1, 3, 5, 7, and going on. It actually gets quite complex, a lot more than what I can actually go and say that I understand greatly. I'm talking where people, they make first-person shooters in CSS, like that kind of complex, that when you got nth childs, you can even start doing calculations. so that you end up with like some real hardcore mathematical selecting stuff that's well beyond my knowledge of CSS. But so do just have a look at that if it does sort of pique your interest, like especially that first person shooter. I'll drop this link later. Made in CSS. It's just insane that a person can actually come up with something like this. Right. So did that at least answer your question?
Yeah. Just like follow up thinking from that. So when you apply, I'm just going to look for the name. So it's literally called the CSS nth child selector. When you apply that, does it just take the first level tier of nodes? So let's say I had another div nesting those list elements. The nth child selector will only apply to the next level of containers, or does it actually go into containers within containers? If
you
it's
can
applied
make
to
it
the
so that it
parent?
selects children within children, and it's something that you're actually often fighting with, is to get it to just select your parent, your top level. Like what you're saying here is if we had sort of 3 things inside here and each one had 3 things, then is that odd going to apply to this and that? Usually if you go and you put the element in the front of it, so you can actually say div nth child. So then it actually goes and does it to all the divs. So then you will actually have children having that same thing applied to it. Not 100% sure if that was correct. I think that is right though. But you're going to see that you're going to be fighting. Like sometimes, like you don't want it to target the children, and sometimes you do want it to target like all of this successive children. So I think if you put like the element in the front, then it will get all of the successive children.
Yeah, that's so cool. I didn't even know this existed before this call. It makes a big difference because if I hadn't known how that existed and I had to churn out because I'm due to do the JavaScript next, which would just be, as you load the elements, load the first element with this class and then the second element with this class, and then, just repeat that over and over with the, the element that needs the flex reverse on just as, the odd one. But like seeing it done in CSS is really cool.
Sorry, Tamira, you had that question?
Yeah, so it's again just the question around what's best practice about what do you target with CSS. So when I needed to make the nav links roboto font, I targeted the UL element, but remember in your video you said you'd rather target the list element, and I was wondering why it would be preferable to target the list element rather than its parent, because all of them need to have that
That
font
was just to show
anyway.
in the video like how you can sort of use the parent and then have selectors in that parent. Like ideally you would just go and set it on like, it's been done on the root, or alternatively you just do it in the body. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So that was
Okay.
just for that example so that I could show people how to do the sort of nested selectors.
Okay, cool.
Okay, cool. Any other
Thanks.
questions, anyone? Yeah, Jonathan.
Like one thing that keeps hitting me is like little quirks that just aren't exactly like the Figma design. So this was firstly super awesome to work off a design. It's a whole different experience. So what would typically happen now next, like in a review stage? So you've taken your first crack at building the front end from a design. Is there normally like a review process at a company where they draw circles around things and go, okay, this needs to be adjusted?
So there is.
Yeah.
If you all have time, I mean, this is getting recorded. So if you have to go, that's fine. But I'm just going to go through the quick process of how this actually would happen. Okay. This is ideally like we'll see that how serious people are, and then we will potentially be looking at code reviews in the future where this is getting done properly with a code review. It just takes a lot of time. So let's just have a very quick look at what would usually happen there. So I was going to grab anything here. Okay. So the way that I've actually set you up completely, the only thing missing is the code reviews. So when you would have those tasks that are getting done, sorry, let me just jump into a task Okay, so these tasks, these feature branches that they've done, a project manager's gone and he's built these tasks for you and he's laid them out, or maybe your lead developer. Sorry, let me just grab this board. I'll blur this out so don't stress about that. Okay, so is this the right one? Okay, so this task would come, right? Okay, and you would put it into progress. Now you would start working on this. Now, something that's important here, and I completely forgot to mention this, and I'm so sorry about that. And I did try to mention to people outside of the session. You're going to have these acceptance criteria, okay? There's probably not going to be as neatly laid out as like I've done here. They might just have one. They might even skip this completely. But if you've got a good project manager and everything is done properly, you're going to have these acceptance criteria over here. And it's going to be called AC, or acceptance criteria. So just leave it like that for now. Anyways, so you would actually need to match these, right? So let's just go and say we did all of these, right? So we go back to our code, and we've gone and we've done all of that. Just make sure that this isn't, well, it's not his, it's mine. So I'm just going to go and just put random junk in here so that I can save it. Okay, so let's say, okay, so we started on our task. We check out a new branch, and that's going to be the feature header. There's probably going to be already a header there. So now I'm just going to write nonsense code in here. I'm just going to call it nonsense class. And just imagine we went and we brought our header in, okay? So we were actually done with this. Now, what you would actually do, first things first, is that before you actually even got to the review part, is that when you had commits, you probably had a whole bunch of commits like this. So something like added font, okay, and then maybe we pushed, maybe we didn't push, okay. Then we would have gone and sort of, maybe we went and, sorry, this isn't my way. We went and we did, and we created another nonsense class, number 2. So there's more code that's been added in here. And then we would go and commit it again. So that's added part 2. Now we're done with this, and we're going to push it. But now there's a problem. You've got like 50 commits because you've gone and you've done different commits each time. So you've got an option here of either squashing or basically rebasing your code so that it becomes one commit at the end of the day. But that can lead to a few problems. It's a bit more challenging. So that's why we haven't gone and looked into that part of the code yet. Like it's just too challenging. I didn't want to throw you guys in the deep end there. So that's one part that we missed. So you would normally have to do that as well. So I don't know why it's asking me to authorize here. Okay, just hold on. I'm just going to do straight from the website like this. Sorry, like I'm worried that it's going to take too long to log in, and then you guys are running short on time. Okay, so we went and we pushed it, and now we're going to have this pull request, which is going to be, let's just let's use this one, and I'm trying to see how we can do a pull request here. Sorry, everyone. Just trying to think of the quickest way to do this. Okay, we're going to have to do it like this. So sorry for the delay. So what's going to happen now is that you're actually going to get reviewed, and it might not be pleasant a lot of the times. Like a good senior developer is going to really sort of scrutinize your code. Oh man, come on. You should just give me a password, yeah. It shouldn't go and log me in. Am I missing something? Okay, well, I'm gonna have to like edit that out and change it completely now. Okay, so that should now have pushed into this other one. Let me just go find it. FEDSA. Okay, so here we go. Here comes the pull request. Okay, so now you would go and change this so that it sort of matches the way that they're using it. So something like header 1. And you'd have to leave like a really good meaningful message. So that like people must know exactly what's happening with your code that you've done here. Like if you leave bad commit messages, employers in the future are going to look at that and they're not going to want to hire you. Like their developers are going to look and they're going to be like, if you are looking for good messages, commit messages, they are sort of, just Google how to write a good commit message. There's a few blog posts out there that are quite famous for being just really good resources. Okay, so we create this pull request. Now this is where they come in. Now you would typically assign a reviewer, yeah, or they automatically get assigned, and there might be 2 or 3 reviewers. Then over here, I'll show you, this is where I said that usually you would squash or you'd rebase. You can see our commits are like, we've got like a whole bunch of commits, and maybe there might be 50. So generally you would either rebase or you'd squash. Not going to go into that now. And this is where they start reviewing your code. So they're going to go and they're going to look at your changes, and they're going to see, is there anything here that they don't like? And then if they don't like it, sorry, let me just go back there. What happens is it pops up over here. So and so says that you need to make changes, and then they will probably go and highlight bits of your code, and show you where the problem is, and they'll suggest the change. Then when you go back to your code, you change it and you git commit and git push, and it comes up here again. It just redoes it here. Just there's more information that pops in here, and then finally, if they say yes, like this button isn't clickable at first, they finally say fine, it's finally good. Then you go and you merge your pull request, and this process can take hours, like hours of your time. It could, depending on how bad the code is. As a junior developer, though, they will be reviewing your code a lot, but I can promise you that getting meaningful reviews done, like, improves you incredibly as a dev. Okay, sorry. So I hope I haven't like talked all your ears off. I hope that was a little bit helpful. In the next project, I'm planning on doing reviews on everybody. We just have to I need to get you used to sort of feature branches and all of that first, and then hopefully we can start using proper reviews for the feature branches.
Yeah, that was really good. Thanks. I'm actually quite interested in squashing and rebasing, so I'll go read up a bit on that, because that is definitely a problem I've seen on like main branches where it's just that doesn't happen, and then and the reason why I've encountered that is because sometimes I have to do release notes, and then it's like next to impossible when there's like 100 commits in the log.
Yeah, Douglas.
Yeah, sorry, I've just got one more question. Is there going to be a deadline on this project? When would you like us to finish it by the
look,
latest?
I'm going to take it easy. You can take it easy, but I would say that you should have it done within a month. Otherwise, if we wanted to release a project, like if we do a project once a month, maybe, I think it might be a good timeline. Then you might not be able to, like, I don't know, this is all going to be up to all of your opinions on how often we should do projects. I would say once a month would be ideal, because then after a year, you've got 12 projects. But you can always, if you aren't able to do it, the way I'm making it is that you can always go back, watch a video, and still do that project. But finishing the project will be incredibly important for you, because you can use it to get hired. Like, this isn't just learning now. The learning must sort of continue to give benefit to you by having that portfolio that is going to get you employed. Yeah.
Yeah, I'll try and finish it by the end of this
But
week.
don't let it stress you out to grow grey hairs and that. Like, if you can't, you can't, man. It's not the end of the world. You're not going to be in trouble. Like, I'm a teacher and you're in trouble.
No, it's just been a very long time since I've done CSS and HTML, so I just have to refresh every now and then. So that's why it takes a little bit longer.
Okay.
Yeah, I also just wanted to say the project has really helped me just to, to search, if I'm struggling with something. So this just helped, the structure and everything. Just
that's
really
great.
helped me to learn new things. And tonight also
Cool.
was really
Yeah, no,
helpful.
we're planning on getting these to be really good. We actually just landed a sponsor this last week, so that we can actually even get a designer in. We've got this young lady, really, really talented designer. She's going to be helping me with the designs, and we're hoping to really give you guys like just some amazing stuff. and really sort of make headway in this whole space, with the goal to ultimately teach you web development, but then also get employed. Because I mean that's what really matters, right? Is that you get a really good job, you get to turn your life around, get to live a good life, and yeah, that's part of what we want to do.
Sure.
Cool. All right, everyone. I guess that's going to be the end of it for tonight. But I am going to be around. So if you've got more questions after this, just send me a message on Slack, and I can just create a video for you, or I can write in text if it's that quick for you. Tamira, I will still go over those questions that you got there, and I'll just answer them if we didn't cover all of them.
Okay, we covered them all. Yeah, makes total sense now.
Okay,
Thank
great.
you.
Thanks, everyone. I hope you enjoyed it, and I'm glad to hear that you guys enjoyed the project. Cool.
Yeah, thanks, Martin.
Have a nice
Thank you
evening.
very much.
Bye.
Bye.
Cheers. Bye.